I've been able to sleep for the last 5 or 6 days. And finally last night I ended up getting like 9 hours sleep because you build up that sleep clock where you just got to pay it back. And I realized it's because PlayStation Stars being down means I can't log in and see my Jim Ryan bobblehead. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3, a PlayStation podcast, episode number 2. We've made it through the episode 0. We've made it through episode 1. Episode 2 is on deck now. And, it feels pretty good. I think episode 1 went over well. People liked it. We enjoyed doing it. So we'll see how far we can take this thing. Of course, joining me, as always, is Mystic Ryan. Ryan, how we doing?
Doing all right, John. We made it. Number 2. How's it feel?
Yeah, number 2. Yeah, well, I guess it feels okay being number 2. I don't know. Is that right?
Getting to number 2. Episode 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, episode 2. It feels good. It does. It's established. We don't have to worry about the title anymore. People were suggesting that we change the name every week, but we'd have to have a new logo made up, and Evan was not interested. I noticed just now that he has fired up Elden Ring, so he's gone for like the next week.
Oh, he did start it?
He did. He mentioned if he started it, he'd be gone. Like he would just disappear. And I noticed on Steam before we started recording, it popped up and was like Evan Elden Ring. It's like, oh, that's it. It's over. He's gone. He's gone to the world.
I know what he means by that. Like that's why I haven't really gotten into that game yet. Cause I know how I am. And it's one of those things where I'll just be like gone. And that would impede on like just everything in life, social life, getting work done. Like I can't, when I get that deep into a game, dude, I can't not put it down. So I just know it's like a trap for me. So
it is such an interesting game. It has that like, all right, one more try before I go to bed kind of thing. Cause you die a lot in the game. Obviously it kills you over and over again, but there are many times where you'll be fighting the boss and you'll get it down to where it has like 10% health left. And you're like, just one more. I gotta try again. Yeah. I imagine many people who are watching this now or listening to this have come across that time in a game where they have been up to 3 a.m. when they were supposed to go to bed at like 11 because they kept doing that over one more shot. So it's Elden Ring has that hold. It does. And this expansion is interesting. I've probably played like 3 or 4 hours of it so far, just on and off when I've had time. And it's killed me a lot. It has. So it has a new mechanic though. You find power-ups in this one that are only are active while you're in this realm that it takes you to. So they have thrown something in the mix to make it so that even if you show up as like a level 250 or something, something high, it won't matter. You still have to go around finding these power-ups to have a fighter's chance, really. But like the art direction, discovery, it's all there. They said it's 30 to 40 hours. This thing is I think this is much more than that. I think they just made a whole new game. I think it's just another game, and that's it. So it's going to be a game I think I'm going to be playing for the rest of the year, probably just as I have time. And I'll probably end up with like another 68, 70 hours in it before I finish it.
So you have some self-control though, to chip away at it like that. Because for some, it's like, if you can set aside like 2 weeks, you could probably do it in a week and a half, 2 weeks, however long it, you'd knock it out.
There are some games that I'll pick as I'm going to play this for the next year or so. And I'll just have my PS. It'll just be on my PS5. It'll always be there because it'll be, as you play games, it'll cycle through and push them off your menu, but it'll always be like 3rd or 4th slot because I'll go back to it consistently. And I'm like, I'll throw an hour at it here, an hour at it there. And then at the end of the year, I'll have beaten. I did that for a while with Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. And I just ended up chipping away at that game completely. Just over time, since it came out earlier this year. It actually only took a few months technically. And now Elden Ring, this new DLC has shown up, and I think that's gonna be the next one I do like that. So
it's a very interesting way to go about it. I don't think I could ever do that. Now with something that's like narrative and it's like sort of, you can, not to say Elden Ring's like a linear game per se, but you sort of expect to just like, that's the only thing you're playing up until you've kind of had your time with it. I don't think I could ever do that. I need to when I start something, that's like it to the end, and before I move on to another game.
I ran into that with Final Fantasy Rebirth, where I think that's because the story was really pulling me through, where I wanted to see what happens next. Elden Ring, I know there's a lore to this thing. I do. It's not obvious, and it's not there that's not what's pulling me through. The idea of what's pulling me through is I want to beat the big boss that everyone's complaining about, or something like that. I want to get to the end. I want to beat it and be like, all right, I beat this new Souls game that everyone is like quitting over. Is that sense of like accomplishment, but also just there's this thing to it where you fight a boss 50 times, you die all 50 times, you beat him that one time, and there is this sense of, I guess it's relief, but also just that sense of, yes, accomplishment all at once. And it's I get why people have those trophy recordings. When you get a trophy, it can set up to record you through the microphone on your controller, and I get why people have those clips of them just screaming in triumph when they beat someone in Demon Souls or something, because it does have that feeling to it. So but Final Fantasy was a different beast. It pulled me through with its story, and I ended up with like 80 hours in that thing in a week and a half or something crazy. So
it's interesting though that you bring up trophies, because it does not have trophies for the Erdtree expansion, which is kind of a point of contention for some.
That was a little weird to me that they didn't do trophies for it. I feel like we see games get stuff added all the time with trophies through updates, and this one is a full-on new game, and they didn't do it.
Well, didn't most of the Dark Souls expansions not have trophies either?
I think so, yeah.
From what I recall, yeah. So I think it's more of a From Software thing. Although with Bloodborne, that did get a trophy pack, but that was Sony published and a lot more involved from their point of view. They probably, hard mandated it to a degree.
Yeah.
But you are playing something else though, aren't you?
I am. All right, I am. I am playing Sly Cooper. It's on the PlayStation Plus premium service now. That's how I'm playing it. I didn't buy it. I went ahead and just downloaded it that way.
You could buy it.
I could. And you know what? I do believe, if you're someone who is not on premium right now, that it is worth $10, right? 10.
Yeah, I'm very surprised, by the way, because we talked about that during episode 1, which was, I thought, $15. I'm like, 10's great. I love it. $10.
I recommend. I do think it's worth $10 if you're not on the premium service and you're curious about it. Let's be right. This thing came out in 2002, 3, 2002, 3, somewhere in there. I know we had 3 early, obviously, but it was very early, right? So it's been more than 20 years since this game released, and it still holds up. It does. It's a fun game, and it's kind of a different take on the 3D platformer. And this was still in that time where, we got to 3D with like Mario 64. It wasn't that long before this thing came out, really. If you think about it, like the world of video games, the timeline of games, 6 years before. Technically, when it went into development, it was probably like 5 years before that came out, Mario 64. So for them to kind of take this approach on where you are like a thief and you have all these fun little abilities, but then they still make it so you have these different hub areas and you go into like specific, yes, linear levels technically that are set up. But every time you get hit, it's like a one-hit kill unless you have like your horseshoe or something. I think they created something very different for its time that still works now, and it still is amazing to me that Sony hasn't thought to revisit this franchise in a more meaningful way at all. Like it's very weird to me, because I'm playing this game, and one of my thoughts with Sony right now is their approach to a general audience, maybe trying to bring in some of the user base that, like we see Nintendo with Mario, where they have a general audience. Adults like playing Mario games, younger kids like playing it. And I kind of get that feeling with Astrobot for Sony. And I've mentioned this before, but like my kids love Astrobot. Like that's it for them. They like Astro, they like Mario, they like Kirby. But like Astro, if you had to ask them like what your favorite, like, okay, what's your favorite thing on the PlayStation? It's Astro. Like that's it. They want to play Astro. We've beaten Astro's Playroom. We had the platinum, the whole thing. We played it for, I think they ended up with like 50 hours in the game. All they want to do is run around and punch the Astrobots in the lobbies. They just want to mess things up in the museum area. Now more trophies have been added, and we're waiting for updates and stuff as we go forward. So they always want to like turn it on and see if the new update's there. But they also like Sly Cooper. So now their number 1 is Astrobot on PlayStation. Their number 2 is Sly Cooper. That's number 2.
Well, if there's 2 games, John, that's kind of the order it might have to go in. One of them's going to be 1. One of them's going to be 2. Did you have them play Sackboy Big Adventure?
They did.
They did. Yeah, that's another childish, sort of more family oriented game.
But it's the character. So they've played Ratchet and Clank, the newest one. They did play the Sackboy Big Adventure game. They've played Astro. They've played Sly Cooper, and they like Astro and Sly Cooper. Those are the two games, or the two characters, I should say, the character specifically.
So they
They
don't like Sackboy.
No, the character just doesn't really
I
do anything for
know.
them. They
Doesn't do anything for him.
Nah, they don't care. They don't really care about Ratchet either. That's the other weird thing. I was like, oh, really? No, don't really know. It's Sly Cooper and it's Astrobot. I'm thinking, I'm like, I guess Sly Cooper is just a very different character. Like, if you look at Sly Cooper compared to anything else, it is very unique. I mean, it's a raccoon that's like stealing stuff. I mean, I guess the idea, plays into what people laugh about in real, in the real world, where raccoons will steal stuff out of the trash or whatever. There's videos of them getting donuts from the donut shop online. Sure, I get it, but it just seems like it resonates with them. They like Sly Cooper, and then they like Astro.
Yeah, I find Sly Cooper has always had a really like, the visual identity of the game. I think everything just sort of comes together beautifully. The sort of cell shaded to a degree art style. It's not really cell shading exactly, but the way the game looks artistically, just the sort of cutesy story, the raccoons and all the animals that can talk to each other. And I like how it's a stealth game that is like, it doesn't take itself that seriously, I guess, right? Because around that time too, like early thousands, there were a lot of like stealth games during that era of like PS2, Xbox, GameCube. It
was like
they're like
Metal Gear,
kind of, and they're like punishing though to a degree,
Splinter
right?
Cell.
Like, like really adult oriented, but this can be just like kind of cute and whimsical, and when you get against like the wall with the innocuous little shining sparkles to indicate that's where you can like get against the wall, and you get that like that cute little do.
Yeah, the music. It's always fun.
Dude, everything about Sly Cooper comes together so beautifully, and that's why I think that game just ages so goddamn well. And that's why I'm so pumped to see this game back on PlayStation Network, locally playable. It's on subscription, so a lot of people just have access to it. $10. You can just buy it straight up if you want to. I'm seeing so many people finally play this game for the first time or revisit it after 20 years. And it's like, yo, this still hits. Yeah, so I'd love to see if this kind of telemetry the company is very much going to track, if it does eventually lead to something, especially with, new leadership in house that is going to have a lot more leverage than they previously did beforehand. Cause Herman and Nishino were with the company for a long time anyway, but, at least with Herman, that where he's overseeing those studios, he's going to be controlling a lot of those budgets. I hope that makes some sort of long-term impact.
I kind of feel like Sly Cooper would also work outside of just video games. And I do wonder if that's something Sony evaluates right now, especially because they're doing it with like, there's a Gravity Rush series coming for some reason, but we don't have a game. So they're obviously like, hey, let's see if this will work. Right. Yeah. Movie. Let's see if this will work outside of games. I kind of feel like Sly Cooper would work in some way, even outside of just a video game. So if they had both and they tried to just hit on all fronts, I feel like if they made a push for Sly Cooper, it could be something that works for the mainstream, actually, if they did it right.
Well, you do remember the movie that was supposed to come, the movie and TV show. Sly did have those things at one point, which never went anywhere. This was like before PlayStation Productions. Like, we got a trailer for that too, which looked really kind of weird because it was like that hyper realistic sort of animation style.
Yeah.
Remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you don't have to do that. I mean, they got the pipeline now, and it's pretty clear they can sell this thing to all kinds of. I mean, how much money is getting thrown around by these subscription services, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whoever. Somebody would throw money at them for a Sly Cooper, probably, like just as like a 10-episode series or something fun. They could do something with it.
Well, that is the rumor, is that we've heard for like the past year and a half, 2 years, that Sony basically has a list of their IP and they're just accepting pitches. Like, here's the games that we would be open to, and anybody can sort of jump in, make a pitch. I just read like only a few hours ago that Huber from Easy Allies, he heard about, I brought this up too. Let me make sure I got it right there. Eco, depending on how you pronounce it. I guess somebody he knows is pitching that game, or pitching that adaptation for a, I think they said movie. I guess either movie or TV show. I didn't look into this too much, so I don't want to get it wrong here.
I wonder how that would go, because that was a game where it was like fairly immersive but quiet, almost like you're kind of by yourself, sort of. I mean, obviously it's a companion kind of game, right? You're escorting around basically. But I wonder how
Yeah.
that would. I wonder how that would work as a.
So I like right when I read this, my immediate thought was like art house style, like A20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's going to have to be that. I guess if you want to really capture the essence of like what that game is all about, you got to lean into it. You can't like this would not be like a big production movie budget kind of thing because then you just can't really, I think, do what that game was doing in a static experience.
Right. That's because if let's say you that's so funny because we saw it with Fallout recently with like Microsoft and Bethesda, where it's very clear that they're not just throwing it out there and being upfront, but man, they probably wish they had a Fallout game when that thing hit. And it definitely caught them off guard with how popular that was. So I feel like Sony's going to run into that at some point with one of these shows they do where it just becomes really popular and they're like, we should have had that game ready to go.
Well, I think they've both commented on this recently. Sony was a bit more forward with it. I think it was Herman at the time. I don't remember where he said it, but it was a matter of like if they have something they can line up with it, great, which we've seen them certainly attempt to do. But I think Matt Booty also just provided a comment on this as well, and I forget where he said this also, but like it was very recent. I believe it was during SGF, but with like the Fallout thing, he more or less it was outright saying like it would be great if we could line those things up, but it's like logistically so hard for those two different mediums to sort of line those up, especially based on production timelines. So I guess based off that language alone, Sony's making attempts. Maybe Microsoft is kind of saying, that's hard to put together. We're not gonna force that.
Yeah, I mean, Sony has a pretty good lane here with some of their IPs that are just kind of sitting around right now with how tough and expensive game development is. If you spin them off into just series and you can have like an Amazon, a Netflix, whoever show up with pitches and ideas with different studios to make movies or series, why not see what hits and then go from there? So I wouldn't mind if they did something like that with Infamous. They're like, hey, here's Infamous.
Infamous.
Let's try awesome.
That. There's so many IP that I think, the
anti-hero, superhero, anti-hero stuff is very popular right now. They could play around with that and make a whole like cinematic universe for Infamous. I don't know, that'd be cool.
Go super deep into it, like The Boys. Just be like super dark with it.
Oh, The Boys is great. It's a great show.
Yeah.
Like that's if they do stuff like that, why not? Like it's definitely taken over, like that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the other thing. You can't be afraid to just let them go full M rated whatever with it and pick it up from there. I know Infamous obviously hasn't leaned into that, but like the series good, the TV show or movie or whatever they do. So there is definitely a wide world for Sony to explore, and they need to start with Sly Cooper. Okay. So we're going to green light at least 2 games and a movie and a series.
Just greenlight 2 games right off the jump. God, I'd love that, but I don't know.
You know what's next? The next one up though so I'm going to finish up Sly Cooper. It says I'm like 54% through or whatever. I'm also getting all the clues and stuff as I go through and opening the safes and doing all that stuff. And the double jump has betrayed me multiple times, but you get the ability. So if you fall in the water, it doesn't kill you now, and it'll just throw you back. That's fine. But
you got rewind too, though.
That's true. I do have rewind. I have used it a few times. I will say that. But the next one up is going to be Daxter.
Good.
So
yeah, we didn't even touch on Daxter too. That was so hyped to see. Now every single Jack game playable on PS4, PS5 with a trophy list. God damn, John, you love to see it.
So
I didn't think I'd be in this timeline.
We will see how they react to Daxter. They might have another sleeper there.
I mean, I'll say this with the PSP stuff, because like this was something where like a lot of people just didn't play these games. PS2, like at least anecdotally, it seems like a lot of Sly Cooper stuff. It's like it's either my first time playing it or I'm revisiting it. A lot of Daxter is, this is the first time I'm playing this game, and that's pretty dope.
It came with my PSP back in the day. I had like a silver one.
You got the silver one. That was I think that was the very first bundle they shipped with that silver one was a Daxter bundle.
Came with Daxter, the Daxter game and everything. Yeah, you got it physically. It was in the box.
I would hope so. It's a UMD.
Hey, I don't know. Maybe they give you a little voucher back
before the go.
I don't know. Yeah. There's a voucher.
That was, you know what though, John? Good point though. This irritated the living shit out of me. Is that when you would buy a console bundle, comes with games. They don't give you a case. They give you a loose disc or a loose
Oh,
UMD. They did that with now. I never bought that silver PSP, but I know for a goddamn fact they put that in that little basic,
the
like just
cardboard
cardboard.
sleeve.
What is it? Give that child a case.
Man,
That is not the way you start children off.
crazy
Despicable.
world out here.
Despicable. Can't kill the environment by adding more
Cardboard
unnecessary plastic
sleeves.
to the
There's
case.
that and Lords of Dogtown.
Let's cover some some news stories here, John. This past week. All right, we had a new PlayStation 5 firmware update. Nothing too crazy there. We had some abilities for like child accounts, so you can now link and add third-party services, new parental controls to control those services. Also, a bunch of stability fixes and improvements to the Pulse Elite and the PlayStation Link adapter. Haven't really tried out if that makes it more reliable, since that Link adapter can be a bit fussy. But the real news with this firmware is that the console was prepped and officially launched with Discord support directly on the console. Whereas before, you needed to use a mobile app or the or desktop to transfer a call from Discord onto console,
Phone.
which cool, but also useless. Now,
That was annoying.
yeah, if you link your Discord account right on Gamebase, bring up the control center, bring up Gamebase. If you've got Discord linked, it's right in Gamebase. You can scroll down, all your servers are there, enter the server, see all the different voice channels, or do a direct call right on PlayStation 5. And I don't know about you, but I think that makes that feature actually useful now.
Yes, and it's much needed. And the reason I say that is because a lot of their games now, we have these live service titles, are cross-play with PC. So if you have Discord, that is a great way to link the two parties together. Like just how many people out there just use Discord now for game talk? They don't even use the in-game chat anymore. They just they fire up Discord. Oh, this guy's on PlayStation. Get him out of here. Now it's at least it's so much easier because it was annoying for a while. Like Xbox had Discord support and you had to use your phone, and they got rid of that. Now PlayStation's done the same. This is good. I think all these systems should just integrate Discord outright from a system level. And for all these games that have crossplay, which we are getting more and more of them, even with the Switch involved, just have Discord as that center point. We can all link up there. Doesn't matter what system we're on. And then we can figure it out from there. Server, everyone join. We can chat back and forth and then go from there.
Right. Yeah. I find Discord's just like so social, like socially relevant today. It's like to not have it, I think, is in a way almost impeding the social aspect of what the console could be doing. So it's great that it finally has it. Moving on to this, I don't know if you've kept up with this. PlayStation Stars, Sony's rewards program, has been down for going on 2.5 weeks now. So it was 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks. Yeah, last Friday. It's Sunday as we're recording. It is still down. And, to me, this reads as a typical Sony. We got something going on the back end because, gosh, does this not happen all the time with this company? Whether it's a PS Plus license issue or some sort of weird oddity with games disappearing from people's list and restoring licenses doesn't work. I mean, this company can occasionally have these kinds of hiccups. I don't think anything untoward's going on here outside of just they can't seem to get this thing back up.
I've been able to sleep for the last 5 or 6 days. And finally last night I ended up getting like 9 hours sleep because you build up that sleep clock where you just got to pay it back. And I realized it's because PlayStation Stars being down means I can't log in and see my Jim Ryan bobblehead.
So I wonder where you're going with this. Did you lose sleep for having Stars down?
See? So I'm actually, the weird thing about this, and I'm not really sure. So people are wondering if this is somehow linked to their rewards program that they are also like discontinuing. That's linked to your the credit card thing they were doing. And then they do that little hint like, oh, there's always something new on the horizon. That's what I would say too if I was cutting out their credit card rewards, to be honest. That's the PR exit right there. But I don't really understand why this has been down for 2 weeks, because originally it was a big deal for them, right? With PlayStation Stars, we're gonna do all these cool things with like digital items that you put on a shelf that looks like it was made in Photoshop 2002. It's like, you stick, it's fine. It's cool. It's different. It's interesting, I guess. You link your points to it and you can use your points for stuff in vanity items really. But I don't really know what's going on here. Sony won't say anything about it. They just, you know what the response is? We know. That's the response. Like, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Well,
I
they
don't
say
really get it.
they say we know, but they've said on a number of occasions, I think it was primarily through customer service, but like you can still keep buying stuff from PSN. They have the transaction history, so like you're still accumulating points.
It does tell me when I
Yeah.
bought the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC and it popped up my phone. It's like you got so many thousand points or whatever added to your count. There you go.
Mhm.
And then I click it and it's like, sorry, try again later. It's like, okay, well, there you go. I guess it's at least it's tracking something in the background. I don't know if a week from now they show up and they're like PlayStation Restars reimagined and it's all different now or something, or it's just like
Yeah, but that is
it
so
works
weird though.
now.
Like they just, I mean, this thing just launched basically the way it is. You know, I feel like it's just
Yeah.
a random issue. I don't expect it to come back and it looks any different. And I also don't expect them to offer any goodwill. Like, hey, like, sorry, here's some
It
coins or something.
it just, the problem is when this stuff happens and it just disappears and they don't give a great explanation and they don't really give updates frequently, it just kind of feels like they don't care about it at all. It's like, okay, I guess. So
Yeah, it's got to be like there's not a lot of resources going into like maintaining
yeah,
it,
that's how I have
but
to imagine it. Yeah. I don't I mean, I will, I'm not logging into the thing every day or something. It's not like, oh my gosh, it's just a joke, but it's still weird that they made a big deal leading up to it. They had press, they the whole PlayStation blog post about how cool is me. You get rewards notifications, but it doesn't work. So I don't know. It's just a weird look. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, it's I don't know what's
It's
going
not
on
like
with
when
it.
PlayStation Network went down forever, a decade ago or whatever. It's not like that, but
No,
it's
it's
still
just
weird.
it's bizarre for sure, but it's a rewards program. I mean, they want people to use it because it actually makes you spend more money. So I'd imagine they're trying to get
Yeah.
it back up. Um, Next up we have this was basically running through a few similar LTPS news stories. We had a Spider-Man 2 update go out on June 18th that had a bunch of free suits and some stability fixes. We did talk about a lot of the recent stuff for Astrobot and Lego Horizon. We talked about Gorilla and their answer for why Lego Horizon is going to Switch, which we surmised correctly that they're probably looking to expand that audience. Um, what we can touch on, though, is if this page loads up for me. More classic games, by the way, too. Time Splitters rated for PS5
Yes.
and
Time
PS4 in
splitters.
Taiwan. You like that one, John?
Yay. That's a good one. And my thing
Yeah.
is though, are we gonna start getting like multiplayer for these PS2 games, like online multiplayer with this?
I don't think we're looking at anything like that.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I mean, the single player is, I can't say it's great. I mean, it's a product of its time, like 2002 or something. But I mean, if they
isn't
got to Time Splitters Future Perfect and multiplayer was enabled through that emulator, and it was actually decent, like with the frame rate and stuff, that would be a lot of fun. That would be a good time.
I was gonna say, yeah, Time Splitter. I'm happy any games come back, but like I think like the third game is what people would probably ideally want out of this, right?
Time Splitters 2 was the one I think I played the most at a friend's house. And we just like legit split screen obviously back then with the PS2, split screen it and stuff. And that was a great time. I think we could all understand that those times have passed now. You just don't get the split screen, couch co-op, couch competitive stuff like we used to back then. We're just much more online, society now, I guess. And I would like to see them make the announcement at some point that this PS2 emulator that they have now also supports full online play. And then here's Time Splitters. I think that'd be really cool. That'd be exciting.
Yeah, I would like that. I don't think that's what they're doing, but I would hope that's in the pipeline down the road. I mean, that's the other big aspect of bringing back all these classic games is, adding something new to them, which we're seeing a number of those titles get that, like online multiplayer with the
I think they're fully capable.
Direct,
I think they're fully capable of doing it. And I think it would also work I mean, the thing they're really interested in now is engagement, monthly active users. I think that would also aid in their quest for world domination there. So they should do that.
World domination.
Hey, monthly active users, the number go up.
You think? So. I mean, I love classic games, but I don't know if they're really contributing to the MAU.
Well, I mean, just if they do believe that their PlayStation Plus premium service is, a legit thing to hold up and show off. Let's it's like it's not cheap. Let's get multiplayer in there. Let's make it happen.
I will say, I mean, with the 2024 business segment briefing, we saw that for the breakdown of PS Plus Extra and Premium members, the percentage is up on that. It's 35% of total PS Plus subscribers nowadays. Now compare that to last year, the 2023 business segment briefing, it was 30%. But that was the last time really that they ever gave us a breakdown of the actual number. They gave a percentage and the number of subscribers. At the time, I think if I remember correctly, that was 13 million combined, extra and premium members. And there were slightly more premium members than extra. Now Sony they no longer disclose like total plus subscribers. So we don't know what that number is. For the longest time, it's been floating around anywhere from 46 to like at its peak, like nearly 50 million. And it always just goes a little bit more or less from that number. So if we assume it's still around there, now it's 35% of the total subscriber base. So in theory, more people are subscribing to extra and premium, and they're also doing this on the new price tag because it's a lot more expensive now than it was.
I think extra is an easier one to recommend. Premium is getting better, especially with the addition of these PS2 games. Even though we have some that are a little wonky, like Tomb Raider. I mean, when you start getting the library of, say, Sly Cooper titles in there, and maybe they continue to expand to some third-party games that surprise some people. I mean, Time Splitters would be cool. You put that in there, and then they maybe throw 2, and then Future. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, wow, there's some really cool shooters from this time period that people probably remember mostly from the PS2. That I think premium can get there eventually, where it's like, okay, yeah, you want to sign up for this, especially if they do get PS3 games involved in some way that's not just streaming. You know, at that point, it's like, okay, yeah, that now we're talking. Now you can start subscribing here. So
it's interesting that you mentioned. So you find extra would be that's the better thing right now, because extra is the one tier that they haven't really added anything to. Technically, premium is the only one that's gotten like new things to it, which would be the Sony Pictures Core app, PlayStation 5 game streaming, which is actually pretty damn good. Even if you don't care about streaming, it does work quite well. There's something else I'm forgetting too, but that's the only tier that's actually gotten like new things to it.
I'm thinking of like if somebody bought a PS5 today and they asked about any of the services, and in my mind, I'm thinking they're buying a PS5 specifically right now. They've bought into the PS5 day one. They probably want to play other PS5 games right away. And eventually they'll probably look at some of the classic titles, but they're thinking, okay, what's going to make my new LG, OLED display look really good with this new PS5? I'd probably just say, hey, get the extra tier and then see what you think. There's a lot of games it'll take you a while to chew through. And that's just in my mind what I would recommend for the pricing day one. And then maybe they look towards the premium. That's just my thought, is like recommendation, price point, how many games you get. I think extra is kind of a no-brainer for a new owner.
Yeah, it just seems like such a steep ask. It's $135 a year now. That's a lot of money up front to ask from somebody. And ideally you want to go annually. I mean, if you do month to month, it's a lot more expensive.
Oh yeah. So, yeah. Honestly, maybe they go, well, I'll just sign up for the first month and explore a little bit and then cancel after that. Sure. That's kind of how I could also pitch it, is like you just bought your PS5, rather than go spend $70 on a new game, take, what is it, like $15 a month or something, 15, throw it in the pile, and then just sign up for extra and start downloading everything you can and just trying it all out. So.
Yeah, get your time in real quick for that 1 month.
Yeah.
Well, so then outside of PlayStation Plus Premium, which the big problem with that tier is simply that a lot of publishers don't want to have their classics go through Sony's program. Yeah. They do end up in other places. So we had Limited Run Games recent live stream for their sort of not E3 showcase. We got some OG PlayStation classics getting the LRG treatment through their Carbon engine. So I cherry picked 3 out here that are
shout out to MVG.
Yep, shout out to MVG. Lead on the Carbon engine over there on these particular games. I believe Tomba 2, which is the big deal for sure, right? So we got Tomba 1 coming August 1st with a physical coming as well.
Tomba.
Tomba. Yeah, there we go. John
got it.
Historically has a trouble.
Okay, Sean called it Toomba 8 times in his video. No one cared.
He's not safe from this either. He's also wrong.
I say Tomba one time and all, or Toomba one time, and all of a sudden people are LeBron James pulling the ref over to the sideline on me.
It's
Okay.
we got a call to make here. This is not right. So we have Tomba 2, which is kind of like heavily overshadowed by the first. Tomba 2 is a bit different. It looks very different, to be honest. But I always make the argument, like, I don't care what the game is. We need, like, let's bring back as many classic games as possible, make them playable to a modern audience. So great to see Tomba 2 is also confirmed. Yeah, physically as well. And a really cool one, Fear Effect. Fear Effect coming to PS4, 5, Switch, and PC 2025 as well. How are we feeling about Fear Effect, John?
I remember that one specifically because parents hated it. They did not like. I remember their commercials, and it was like, this isn't Mario. What's going on here? And it's like,
this isn't Mario. It's not even close to Mario.
It was like those, we've talked about like the magazine ads that were just way out there and pretty offensive at times, but they took that and they just kind of translated it over to like a game 20-second commercial and then the game. And it was different, again, a different kind of game, which was cool at the time because we were seeing more like the PS1 specifically started bordering on the edge of just like narrative experiences. Obviously the CDs and the addition of having more space for better audio, yes, visuals, but just being able to work in almost like movies into the game, right? Those kind of draws and experiences. And Fear Effect also played into that. I mean, it wasn't quite Metal Gear Solid level, but they still tried to play into that idea, and it was very abrasive to parents at that time. I will tell you that. And so we'll be buying it next year.
So I'm ready to look back at that one again. Now here, another one, Bubsy. Gotta talk about Bubsy.
Do we?
Bubsy,
we have to?
Yes,
that's the thing.
Because Ben Studio made Bubsy on the PlayStation. So this has some major historical relevance.
Probably don't want people to remember that.
No, we have to reflect on Ben's infamous Bubsy on the original PlayStation, which many regard as like the worst 3D platformer ever made.
They have their name on that. Oh man.
But you know what? It's you know what I find is so like historically important about Bubsy is that there was going to be a game during that time. This is when everybody was trying to figure out how do we go 3D, right? On the PlayStation, the N64, all these studios, how do we transition to 3D? What do the first 3D games look like? And there's no rules that were written just yet. Everybody's figuring it out. So the first attempts that were put out in the ether, right? Crash Bandicoot, the Sonic's ass game. What a weird thing to consider that you're looking at the rear of a character all the time. And yet that's like just a totally normal thing nowadays. Mario 64, which really sort of, I think, defined the rule set for where 3D platformers would historically go. And then you have Bubsy, which is, here's what we think this should be. And my God, is it a pain in the ass to play?
Why did they close the thing out? I thought I was like on an island confused when I saw that. I'm like, is it just me? Does everyone like what they're seeing right now? It's Bubsy. They played it up like it was GoldenEye, right? That was the whole idea. It's supposed to be funny. And it's Bubsy, and it's like that's the closeout. Sometimes I think Limited Run tries to get a little too what's the word? I don't say not hip, but like kind of I think about it. Like, oh, look at us, Bubsy, and yeah, it's like who cares? Who is like, yes, Bubsy? Who is? I just don't. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there is yelling at their screen right now, and it's like,
me.
Bubsy, come on.
I mean, I don't know. I'll admit, LRG gets a lot of business nowadays, and oftentimes rightfully so. But I think that was like fun. I think I was
a lot of customer loans. That's what they get.
Yeah,
I was free loans from customers.
Yeah, basically, it's a wonderful model.
2 years.
So yeah, a lot of classic love. So I mean, I'm always down for it. I'm loving it. So we had LRG's thing going on. Now let's talk about the PlayStation 5 Explore icon on US consoles, which saw some recent improvements recently. Okay. So my console's on the beta, but very few people have it. I'm starting to realize the more I talk about this thing, not many people have it. You don't have it, do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's like a server side thing. If you log in, you'll just eventually have it. Like it'll just
Oh,
show you
okay.
like, do you want it? And you have to agree to it right then and there on the console. But
If I see it, I will
anyway,
agree
it's
to it. I will.
yeah, for those that forgot or don't know
I
what's
saw
going on
your
here.
video on it where you went through it, did a whole tour of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Explore icon, it's only for US consoles. This is something a lot of people also forget because really there's the whole other part of the world that doesn't have this icon on their console, but it's basically a glorified like advertisement section. It's the first tile that you see when you boot up your console.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's basically just game news for anything that you have bought, downloaded, interacted with on PSN. The game gets automatically followed on your profile. There's like a following list. So you're like following all
Okay.
these different publishers. And so that's the game news and that's the Explore icon. In 2022, they made a slight change to that page where they added static widgets. So there was one for your trophies, your friends, and then another tile for, again, game news. So it's like, okay, you guys kind of figured out where this should probably go. You can't move those things around. You can't customize it or do anything. Now this is the new beta. You actually have widgets, proper widgets, like a battery widget for status indicator, connected accessories, friends, trophies. You can rearrange the tiles to your liking. You can see a friends list now, or rather, friend activities. You can see your recent captures and you can really customize it. It's extremely usable and much better than what they had before. So the news here is they're just still making changes to the beta. So they've added temporary time sensitive widgets. So there will be like little tiny indicators on the top of the entire screen that will just let you know, hey, claim your monthly games, or here's a progress bar for a download from PSN, or an upload too if you're uploading something from the game capture gallery. And they've added new widgets. So the one would be messages. So now you can have a widget to actually see your sort of inbox before bringing up game base. And then also for the console storage widget, before that was
Mhm.
only for console storage. If you had extended storage or if you had M.2 storage, you wouldn't be able to see that. Now you can see that. You can just tab between those with L1 and R1, very intuitive, and you can just leave it default on one if you want to just keep tabs on how much space you have for that particular storage. And then for the game captures widget, before it was static, as in it just like, I think it just kept your most recent capture on there, if I remember correctly. Now you can like set it to shuffle. So like every time you revisit the Explore icon, the game capture will change based on if it was a trophy or something that you manually captured or whatever the case is. You can set it to whichever one you want, or you can have it shuffle, which I think shuffling's always more ideal. And then there's just like an additional little setting to move the temporary widgets from the top or bottom.
So they're actively doing work on this right now.
They've made a
Clearly.
few changes to it already. The one other change
Oh,
they did, the big one was they let you actually save a preset, because before when they launched it, technically you couldn't really move the tiles around. They only had 3 presets, like game focused, multiplayer focused, and then like some sort of weird mix of
so
like,
this whole thing is still in beta.
yeah.
They're still working it out.
Still in beta. They've sent out, as far as I know, 2 surveys. So they
Mhm.
are keeping a dialogue with those in the program. I filled out the first survey. I haven't checked the second one, but like the first one was your pretty standard affair stuff. You know, what's usable, what widgets do you like, which ones are you not using, is this whole thing intuitive? And so it reads to me like they're really buttoning this thing up before they do make it go live, because I'm seeing a lot of people say like, this looks great. I
Yeah,
want
that's
it.
what I was
Yeah, I
wondering.
want it
It sounds
now.
like an at a glance screen, like when you turn it on, you can see everything that's like happened or happening even with your friends right away. Page one.
Yep.
There it is. Okay. They can
And
get that
the
out
thing
there.
is too,
That sounds cool. Yeah.
it addresses like the biggest problem that I think the PlayStation 5 UI had. Now I'll be on record to say this. I think this UI is awesome. I like foundationally what it's supposed to be. Not saying it's
Mhm.
perfect. It's it's certainly got a number of issues. But in terms of the core design principles of it, which is always highlighting your software, and it's just a horizontal row of your software, and it's not trying to do anything, you know, crazy or ridiculous. I just sort of like foundationally what it looks like. The biggest problem was it removed a lot of the social aspect of PlayStation 4. Like, even though they probably like people maybe didn't use it that often, but just
Mm.
seeing the what's new section on PS4 on first boot up, just to
Right.
like get that cursory glance of like your friends list and what trophies they were earning and interacting with. People I think missed the sort of social aspect of the console, whereas PS4 felt very isolated. And so now you can put in tiles to show your friends. And like that's the first thing you see when you boot up, which I think that's what you should be seeing. the first time you start this thing.
Right. Especially again with their push to like live service stuff where they're trying to incorporate it. That makes a ton of sense to start up your system and like you can see what your friends are playing. And if you can go from that menu right there into the game and launch it, so it's just immediately that would make a lot of sense for them. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kick back to you is, so, I mean, right now it's all primarily these are widgets Sony came up with, but this to me, I think the natural step would be third party, like open it up and let, game specific widgets from developers be able to be made. And then you could, insert those in from games that you own.
Right. That you
So you can get,
follow
like,
a lot. I can envision like Destiny, for example, where it's constantly getting updates and you just like have a widget there and it just shows you a feed of stuff and then maybe friends or like a little RSS feed almost that's just constantly showing stuff there, bug fixes or patch notes or outages, even that kind of thing.
Yeah, that too. I was going to say, like, I feel like the biggest benefactor would be a live service game, something you're always like playing and booting up. And because they like the weird angle of this is that the console foundationally also has this too in the form of activity cards.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you tile over to a game like say Destiny 2, like it does that with the activity card, and that'll be like on your game hub right then and there. So it's in a way it's already like trying to boot you into a specific portion of the game, or there's now a new little link above the play game button where that'll be game news as well. But obviously you have to tile over to it on the screen. I just feel like, it would be more useful to open up, like make some kind of a API, add this to the SDK and let developers kind of tool around with this and just make specialized
makes it faster to get
widgets
into your game. Like decide what you want to play and get there as soon as possible, basically, right? So you don't have that. It's interesting. I do see people sometimes online who will say that they start up their system and they don't play a game because they don't necessarily know what to play immediately. They kind of stare at their screen. I see this on like Twitter X or wherever. I think Facebook, it pops up. I see that, and I also see people say they're too tired to play games, so they turn it off. But it's kind of that sense of what do I play sort of thing. And that could be because, as you're mentioning, you have to tile over to the game to see what's going on and let it populate a bit. If there is a single screen that you start up your system and it's there with a bunch of games you've either played recently, and let's just say you haven't played your PS5 for a week, but it still remembers the last 5 or 6 games you've played and it populates it there with updates, that might actually be enough to entice you to then just say, oh yeah, okay. And you press cross to jump into it. And and there you go. You're in.
Oh my God.
So with that, that's it.
See, you make a good point though, with the whole people like won't even start anything because they just don't know what to. It's weird. Like they did acknowledge that like 4 years ago before the console came out. Like that was like a goal for activity cards, because a lot of activity cards, and developers have to support this, where they fill in this, like they populate this info in the card. But cards do have estimated time for completion,
right?
Like for main missions. Like you've probably noticed this, right? Like Spider-Man 2, like first party games, obviously. Yeah, first party games always make the best use of this, but it'll always say like this mission's 5 minutes. This one
jump you right to it too.
Yeah, around 10.
All right. Yeah.
So if they want to sort of capitalize on that, I think it might be better served on the Explore icon rather baked into the game hub. And also you have to like launch the game and be actively in it to see those cards oftentimes anyway. So it's probably the better way to go about it.
I get it. If you're like, obviously many people will play games so many times a week. If you can just make it easier for them to pick the game and get to the game, you're probably just going to get more people playing games on your system. So I think that whole startup screen idea is a great idea. It is good. It is. Because if you don't want to see it, you just tab right and that's it, right? You're on to the next thing. So it's like great. Also on the Sony UI, the current one with the PS5, I actually like quite a bit too.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
Like it?
Well, some of my issues I've had with other UIs, I'll say on different systems, is that they'll block a lot of the stuff going on in the background. And this one doesn't necessarily do that. It feels like they have created it as more of an experience just for the PS5 and for the home theater setup, as opposed to trying to then stretch it across maybe multiple devices so that it'll fit there. So that's the thing I will give them, is they made it specific for the platform and your nice big TV and home theater, and the store is completely integrated in, whereas it was kind of annoying before where it was like an app. So
yep, that's true. That's another very big plus. So closing out that, let's talk about this new PlayStation Portal firmware. Have you messed around with this, John? Because
Have,
now,
you can
now you
public
can sign in.
Wi-Fi.
You can sign into McDonald's Wi-Fi, baby.
You see how you do it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so funny that like they just vehemently want to avoid like opening up a web browser
They're
directly on this
terrified of
thing.
that web browser, Ryan. Oh man, that web browser is like, it keeps them up at night.
But you can still access it. Like it's like tucked away in settings, but you can bring up the browser. I don't know if you can exit it. I haven't actually like looked into that because like you know how, like this is the same on PlayStation 5. Like if you can just kind of like link your way through the Sony
Yeah.
support page enough times, you can finally like get free to Google or something. So I don't know if it's like that on the Portal just yet, but it'll prompt a QR code. You scan the QR code, then you can agree to any sort of authentication page from the hotel, airport, wherever you're at. And Sony is now going to let you play this thing wherever.
You have to use your phone to scan the QR code.
Yeah, your phone. You have to
Yeah,
scan your
use your
QR
phone
code.
there. So I feel like this is an update they've pushed before they've like triple checked that browser to make sure there's no entry point on it. Like they're like, people want to use this in hotels and stuff. We got to come up with something. QR code, make them use their phone. Kind of like the Discord thing we just talked about the PS5. There was that in between time. And I think we will get to a point where they figure it out with the Portal, because that just seems it seems redundant, unnecessary to have you use your cell phone. I guess at least there's something. That was one of the big complaints, is that there was no way to go through that gateway on a hotel or airport like you're mentioning. It just still seems clunky. I don't know. I think this is just a temporary step before they are 100% sure that people aren't going to hack their way to the PS5 through the Portal.
Well, you know what's weird though too? I mean, they started putting QR codes pretty much everywhere on the console. To be honest, though, like the sign-in page has it. If you manually go into system settings and you want to like see firmware notes, like that used to be on the console. It would pull it and it would be like baked right into the actual console UI. Like you could see the patch notes.
Right.
They don't do that. It's a QR code. Like that wasn't a web browser. They just don't want to integrate it right into the console anymore. So they just throw up a code. I go, weirdo. Why do you want to see patch notes? Yeah. Go look at it over there. Are you going to use your Portal outside of your home network?
I have not even done, I haven't done that yet. I keep it in my house, and it is, the way I view it is just a controller as a screen. I know some people view it as like a handheld or something that goes outside your house. It just never has. It's here. It works well enough for me here, and that's good enough for me. That's all also the thing, I mean, it seems durable enough, but I don't know, something about it. It just, I don't view it as something that travels personally.
I wouldn't want to drop it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm fine where it is. Like, for example, when football season starts back up, I like the last football season, with the Portal came out towards the end of it. I used the Portal while I was sitting here watching football, and I was just playing that, and it worked well. Also, again, I'm like, the router's there, the PlayStation 5's there, that's plugged in. It's within like 8 feet, you know.
You're hardwired.
The PS5 is hardwired. Yes.
Yeah.
All systems hardwired. I'm not playing with the Wi-Fi business. I'm not doing that.
There you go. Yeah, get that latency down. Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot. I am surprised they actually did it, because they still do recommend, like, this thing was intended for your home network. So the second you leave, you're gonna increase your latency by quite.
Is that a video idea?
I meaning to get around to do something else about Portal, like another sort of update video. Just haven't gotten around to it.
Maybe I played my PS5 from like 1,000 miles away. Just go fly somewhere.
Yeah, but people have already like looked at that, because like the thing is, there was a way to do it, like to bypass sign-in pages. Is a really convoluted thing. Like you had to like open up like your like command prompts on the computer and sort of trick the Portal or the Wi-Fi signal it was like a whole thing. So
right,
you could have done it before, but like now they just open it up, obviously.
The ending is where you realize you want to play a different game, but you're completely physical in terms of all your discs. And
yeah, then you can't. I know that's the one crux with my physical game collection. I got to make sure a disc is in there.
Yeah.
But here's so did you see this interesting metric though from the PS blog, where they say over 60% of Portal owners have used the feature for the first time, With that internal data being from November 2020 to April 2024, the most played games in the first 3 months are God of War Ragnarok, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Astro's Playroom, Fortnite, Rocket League, and EA Sports FC 24. I don't know about you, but 60% is alarming to me. You're telling me 60% of people paid $200 and they never even knew what this thing was going to be doing or what the experience was going to be like.
You know what? I actually am not terribly shocked by that because remote play, I think a lot of people I don't think they knew that it was around since the PSP. Like you use your PSP and you can play your PS3 like through Wi-Fi. It wasn't great. It wasn't even good, but it worked. And I feel like most people didn't know that. And I even got to the point where I remember mentioning at one time that I actually played my PS4 through remote play on my laptop downstairs. And I plugged in a PS4. So they're like, you can do that? It's like, yeah, there was a PlayStation app. You loaded it up. It told you to plug in a PS4 controller. And I think I played Persona 5 for like 10 hours or so that way, just through remote play on that. And of course we had it on the Vita, but I feel like it's always been a secondary feature. This was just one where it was just laser focused. It's not going to work otherwise. Some people may have bought this thing, Ryan, and not even, it sounds weird because we're looking at it. We understand what it is. Some people may have bought this thing, not necessarily grasping the idea of remote play or that's all it's going to do. Maybe there are some out there who bought it thinking it was going to play games natively, even though all the marketing said it won't.
You really think that was like that's a significant portion of people that...
I don't think it's a significant portion, no, but I'm sure there's like a grandmother out there who's like, oh, PlayStation Portal, that's a PSP. Let me get that for them. But I think there are people who went into this who just didn't do remote play because either they didn't have a PSP or a Vita and they didn't have the pipeline to do it, or they never tried it until now. And they're like, hey, this looks kind of cool. Let's try it.
Well, so what's interesting is the timeline they gave. So it's basically the data is only tracked from the entire PlayStation 5 cycle. So I'm almost curious as to if they're just straight up excluding people that have definitely tried it, but only on PS3 and 4. You know what I mean? Or is this metric still technically saying like, no, this was the first time this particular PSN ID ever did this? Or if it really is something where it's like, they might have tried it before, but this is the first time they're using it on a PlayStation 5.
Well, would you have expected people to do remote play on their phones, though? I don't know how many people even did that, because otherwise I'm thinking, well, the Vita would have been the remote play device for the most part of that time. It didn't sell incredibly well. And then before that,
your only option is the phone.
Yeah, the experience on the PSP just wasn't very good. Like, you could recommend it, but people were like, why would I do that? So yeah, it would have been your phone. And I feel like people look at that, see the touch screen or see attachment, like, I think I'm good. So this might have just been the first opportunity people had where it was a focus. And it was, let's also be straightforward about this. It was very, very easy to do. Like, you sync up to your Wi-Fi, it finds your PS5. You don't do the thing where it's like, it shows up as touch controls at first. And you can be like, okay, well, hold on, let me move this to an attachment, or let me move these things around. It just functioned. It gave you the same PS5 feel and the controller. And I think for a lot of people, convenience plays a massive factor into this. We'll play around with a system for 30 minutes to an hour to make sure it works. There are probably plenty of people who start it up, it doesn't work in 5 minutes, like, whatever, secondary feature cares. I'm gonna play this Vita game or this PSP game or Candy Crush on my phone.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I feel like the obvious play for anybody that's about to drop $200 is let me check how it is on my phone first.
You would think, right?
There's nothing proprietary about the Portal. In the grand scheme of things, it's like the same connection, which you would. Yeah. This is like the drawback of the Portal. Like, why would you not sort of bake in some sort of onboard thing that's going to get that latency down ever so slightly versus a phone? And there's no special settings for adjusting bitrate or anything like. So it's. I would have. You know,
what I would have loved to see, Ryan, is some sort of direct connection to the PS5 somehow.
I mean, do you mean direct as in like by wire, or like a direct like
direct wireless? Like, they figure out a way
like
to make
ad
that
hoc
happen.
or something.
So you're not like, because for me, I'll be 8 feet from the system. That's like, it's funny because I'm basically saying, why didn't they make a Wii U right now? But the functionality for the Wii U, when it in that regard, where it was just, I want this to be on this screen. And because someone wants to watch TV, it actually worked fine. Like, that wasn't the issue. That wasn't like one of the worst things about the Wii U, right? Like, there were many other things you could beat down into oblivion over the Wii U. That was actually a pretty cool feature. And I would not have minded for Sony to figure something out there. So you just had a really nice picture and really low latency. Again, I don't know how possible that is for them with their current configuration on the PS5 and then this portal, but that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah. It's an interesting device for sure. I would very much classify this as a more experimental thing from their point of view, but we had that this week, so, or somewhat recently, so
at least they're updating it still.
Yeah, I didn't think. I mean, there's really not much to add to it. That's all it does. Next would be, giving that thing access to PS Plus Premium.
PS Plus Premium. That's the big one, right? When do we do game streaming for this portal?
Independent of a PS5.
That would be big. That would be.
Let's move on to a rumor here. Not even a rumor. It's just something that I guess we learned more about, which I kind of already knew, but Blue Point Games. So we know they're still working on an original title because Peter Dalton, Blue Point's head of technology, was, quote, retweeting this thing about Hidetaka Miyazaki, and it was just, him on his own personal account. Somebody responded to him on Twitter asking if they're still working on an original, a game that's like based on original content. And Peter Dalton responded saying nothing has changed and that they're still working on an original title and that everything takes time. So basically the news here is nothing has really changed in terms of what Blue Point is still working on. Like, the language hasn't really shifted much at all. Back when they were acquired, they confirmed we're making original content, and that context was them explaining that we're a studio comprised of creatives. Like, it's not like we have to be pigeonholed as a remaster or a port studio or a remake studio. Like, we can make new things. So it was very evident back then that they were doing something new, but the language was very specific of them avoiding the term new IP. Then we had the Insomniac breach, where internally there was a slide that said they're still working on original content, even internally, where we expect that's where secrets are being kept. And that's still how it's being referred to. They're not calling this thing a new IP. Now we have Peter Dalton responding to somebody, and he said original title, again, not saying new IP. I mean, I don't think there's really much to go. There's no, like, we don't need Inspector Gadget here. Like, it sounds like it's an existing property, but they're working on a new entry.
Know where we're going with this?
I don't, but I'm sure you'll fill me in.
So Blue Point did Demon Souls, right?
Yeah.
It was with the PS5 2020. They've had 3.5 years now since then, really. So September showcase, maybe somewhere in there. That'd be good. First party stuff getting thrown all over the place. Lights go down, and then boom, Blue Point, new Sly Cooper.
Well, I'd love to say you're right. But I don't think we still have any, I mean, the running theory that I keep seeing a lot of is that they're doing a new God of War. Yeah, or they're handling like an Atreus spin-off game or something. Like,
I could see that.
Yeah, but it's based off like the only thing we got, which was from the Insomniac breach, which is like concept art, which people are thinking that if there's anything we can associate that with, maybe it's that. Especially because Blue Point also handled some like outsourcing work on Ragnarok recently. So it's like they've worked on the property firsthand. So
it's not to go with, I guess that would be a safer bet for them because it's God of War, it would sell. It's just interesting that might be the path. I feel like if I was at Blue Point's shoes and you did Demon Souls, you've done Shadow of the Colossus, Gravity Rush Remastered, Uncharted, Nathan Drake, you've done a lot with these remasters or remakes. And they also did it way back. Okay, 2006 says they did Blast Factor. So that was an original game, right?
That was their only original game. It was a PSN launch title, a twin stick shooter for $6. It's kind of a far cry from what they eventually ended up shipping in 2020.
Sure. So it does say it was the first game on the console running at a resolution of 1080p and a frame rate of 60. That's pretty good. But I get what you're saying, but it seems odd to me that they would go, oh, yeah, we want to do this God of War spinoff thing. You feel like if you're going to pitch something, you'd go, maybe you go further back in Sony's history and find something that you feel like maybe you can revive or put your own stamp on that wasn't just like we just had Ragnarok, which is fine. I assume God of War is going to keep going, obviously, but I don't want to say I'll be disappointed if that's what Blue Point's working on. I'll be a little underwhelmed, I'll admit, if it was Blue Point shows up and it's like a God of War Atreus, which I do think that it makes a lot of sense for them to go that route. But
I was gonna say, is it disappointing because it's Atreus, or is it
no, it's just
disappointing because it's
disappointing
God of War?
because I was hoping Blue Point would surprise. That feels very expected in general for Sony to do. I would have liked to see Blue Point do something, I don't say weird, but very different or maybe surprising. There's a lot of talent at that suit. Very clearly a lot of talent there. It would, I don't know. Maybe I'd look at that and go, okay, that's fun. I'm going to play it because I like God of War. I like God of War Ragnarok. I'm sure I'll like this. It just, I'm not sure if maybe I was thinking Blue Point would. I said Sly Cooper as like a joke, but kind of in that vein of something we haven't had in a while that they would go back and get and spend 5 years developing.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's fair speculation. I would argue we still don't really know for certain what this thing is outside of like
it could be an original IP. Could be.
Well, they're very clearly not using that language.
You just throw them off.
That's the news here, is that for some godforsaken reason, like that's the most common thing we ever hear out of studios, publishers. Nobody's like afraid to say new IP. Like if it's new IP, they just say it. The fact that they're not saying it, I think, is pretty telling. Let's move on to some third-party announcements.
Hold on. What do you think Blue Point's doing, Ryan?
I don't know. I don't know, John.
You got to guess? I said Sly Cooper.
I'm not gonna guess. You're not gonna get that out of me.
Oh man, no guess. Just leave me out here with Sly Cooper.
No, let's talk about the Nintendo Direct because, as any showcase often goes, plenty of third-party announcements. Mm-hmm. So, if you have PlayStation hardware in your household, there are still things coming to your console that were shown off during Nintendo's very strong live stream. So we'll just go run down this list, chronological order, just fire them off. Fairy Tail 2, PS4, PS5, winter 2024. Fantasian, Neo Dimension, that's for PS4, PS5. Yeah, winter 2024.
Check it out.
A lot of holiday games, because all these showcases were basically just saying, hey, here's what's coming for this year. So there really is no shortage of things to try out, but we do have some 2025 games. That would be Mio Memories in Orbit. That's cross-gen. Hello Kitty Island Adventure, PS4, PS5. Big caveat here, John. Nintendo did lock that down. Timed exclusive for the Switch. Now we know PlayStation's coming. We know it's coming. But we don't know if that's like a 6-month agreement or a 1-year agreement. Now, if it's a year, a little rough. That's a 2026 game. So
get the investigation hat on. We'll figure this out.
Yeah, pretty far back on that one. That's a little bit rough. But we do know Looney Tunes Wacky World of Sports for PS4, PS5 coming fall 2024. Like me some Looney
random
Tunes.
Announcement.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a little late on this one, aren't we? An Among Us update, which is live now. I don't even know what it was.
That's actually how the Direct leaked, is because they put that trailer up a week prior by accident and they took it down. And it said
really?
the 18th. And everyone was like, well, I guess that's when the Direct is. And Among Us people were like, well, this is kind of ironic, actually. So
I don't know. Anytime I see an Among Us trailer, I'm just like, all right. It's just not for me.
I think it's kind of passed us by, us being old people, kind of. The kids like Among Us as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's very violent.
It is very violent. That's out now, though. So if you're into
like
Among Us,
for the new generation.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. How about Farmagia for PS5? No PS4 version, apparently, but that's coming out November 1st, 2024. Big one here, though. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake for PS5 this year, November 14th. This looks gorgeous.
Looks awesome.
Looks amazing.
What an awesome looking game. Yeah, the HD 2D style looks, I think, way better here. It's still the same engine, same style and stuff. It just looks more colorful, looks brighter. I usually picture the HD 2D as being a little, not like doom and gloom looking, but definitely darker. This just looks awesome. So, and we got the right order, 3, 1, 2. Got that all set up. So
yeah, because
title
Dragon
is
Quest
weird. Do you think the title's weird on that? You said you were fine with it.
the title, like the naming convention of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Name them what they are. That's
Okay.
we don't have to get fancy. We don't have to throw in a delta or a mega symbol in there. Like let's just call this thing what it is, right?
I mean, like HD 2D.
Yeah, well, that's I mean,
still,
well, that's how everybody refers to these, right?
I guess. Yeah, that's true.
So you've got 3, and then 1 and 2 coming as well. That was like sort of an after announcement, coming 2025, which we were also recommended. Hey, you might want to play the games in this order: 3, 1, and 2, which I thought was nice. How about Funko Fusion? PS4, PS5.
What about
September 13th. Is this one for the kids, John? Tell me that.
No, they don't know anything about the Funko Pop stuff, or no. That seems like a rabbit hole to fall down right now with how much stuff there is around that. I mean, I see them when I go to half the GameStops I go to, a quarter of the store is just Funko Pops.
Do you have any or no?
No. I don't have those.
So I've never bought one myself, but I've had, I think 3 now at this point gifted to me.
Okay.
So in my experience, it sounds like they're also just like, ooh, I know so-and-so likes this property. And if it's a property, if it's anything, it's got a fucking Funko Pop.
It's the default gift.
It's like a good gift. Yeah. Like I know this person likes this thing, and they're like, what? They're like 15 MSRP, right? They're not a lot.
I don't think it's a lot. No. So if they don't know what to get you,
they're getting
you a Funko Pop. So if someone hands you a Funko Pop, they say, I don't know enough about you to get you an actual present.
You know what? I'm starting to, now I got to talk to Terrell about that. Terrell got me one, bastard. Forget which one he got me. I say I got 3 of them. Sackboy, Chandler Bing from Friends, and somebody gave me Stewie from Family Guy. I'm like, what the
that seems like, actually, hold on. It seems like there's some background with Chandler, so maybe he does know you then.
All right, what was that? Okay, Metal Slug Attack Reloaded for PS4, PS5. That was a shadow drop. It's like a tower defense Metal Slug, which I don't care much for Metal Slug, but I do like me some tower defense.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, for me, I'm just looking at Tactics. That's supposed to come out later this year. That's the Metal Slug I'm thinking of right now, but it just seems like there's a lot of Metal Slug stuff happening, but they don't want to actually make another Metal Slug game. They're just making spin-offs, which that's fine. I mean, explore different opportunities for the franchise, but I'm hoping the Tactics one is good, but that'll be later this year on PlayStation.
Yeah. Next up, we have Darkest Dungeon 2 for PS4, PS5, July 15th. That's coming out very soon. Phantom Brave, The Lost Hero. That's next year, PS4, PS5. And then a very big announcement, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics for PS4, 2024.
There it is.
Very big deal, John. Very big deal. We have a lot of delisted fighting games now coming back to console, digitally and physically as well.
Let's get real for a minute here, Ryan. How many copies are you buying?
Well, so I understand the importance of this, but I'm not a fighting game person. I'm really not.
Okay.
So I don't think I'm going to buy this because I just don't, I don't buy games I don't play. So it's not for me. I mean, like my friend Terrell, he loves fighting games. So this was like a very big deal for him. Like, I mean, the thing everyone brings up here, like Maximilian Dude's response to this and his reaction was just like, that's what this meant for the fighting game community. So I get it. Not for me, but it's great that this is a thing.
I think it's hilarious that the entire past, year or so, there was a massive campaign to get this to happen, to get some sort of response from Capcom and Disney, I guess, Marvel, all the people involved with this stuff. And then Nintendo just casually drops it in a direct and then move on from it so fast. And it's just like, this is an announcement and like kind of not a sizzle reel, but I mean, it was pretty close to that. They kept it going, right? And it was fun the way they did the reveal. They did like take you for a ride thing. And it was like, all right, it's fun. I am very excited for this because I'm not a big fighting game person. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is one of my most played Dreamcast games back in the day with friends. And a lot of it was just going through the arcade mode single player, getting the points and unlocking characters. They had characters and outfits. You'd go into the store and you back out. over and over and over again. It would change what's available to you, and you would spend your points, and it would just keep building out that character, and the tree just kept getting bigger and bigger. And it was almost like, where is this character going to go on this massive screen now? And how many characters are there? Because it wasn't like you would have now where you have YouTube or something, or you just be on Twitter, X or whatever, and you scroll through and, oh, okay, well, there's the complete list of characters. There's the picture of the final thing. You didn't know. And you were just constantly going through it. It was fun to see what character you were going to have in the shop pop. It give you like a silhouette. You're like, I think that's Magneto or something. I'm going to buy that. Yeah, that sort of thing. It was fun. So that for me is like the big nostalgia thing. And they showed a bunch of other games that are going to be on that collection. I didn't see anyone really care about those. So it's just like, hey, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. All right.
Yeah, it did seem like the big deal was, was NBC. So got that coming.
Punisher co-op on that, apparently.
How about Just Dance 2025?
Wow.
Edition this year, PS5.
Big hit there. Big one.
And we got some Nintendo Switch footage of Lego Horizon Adventures. What a timeline we're living in, huh?
PlayStation Studios logo in a direct.
PlayStation Publishing LLC, which is their name on platforms that are not PlayStation. So, but yeah, Switch footage. So very low res looking.
I mean, at least it's into the direct. So this is, I mean, big advertisement for it, really, if you think about it. It's a lot of people just saw it. So we'll see what happens when it comes out. That I'm very curious for those like first month sales figures, just to see how it does on the Switch, because this could be big for Sony if they want to try their experimental games and really just take advantage of this platform that them and Microsoft are viewing more and more as just a neutral platform at this point.
I'm very much interested in finding out where this game lands, especially like for the in the UK and in Europe. Usually we get some drops from gamesindustry.biz where we get some like actual like platform ratio breakdown of retail sales. So we'll like know, like at least at retail, like what was the ratio from the Switch version versus PS4, PS5. So PS5, I should say. The game's actually not on PS4, but that'll be interesting to see for sure. Tales of Shire is next. That's on PS5 this holiday season, 2024. Then Ace Attorney Investigations Collection, PS4, September 6th. A lot of Ace Attorney fans. So
I wish I had gotten into this series. It never clicked with me.
No?
It didn't. It's a shame because people say it's like some of the best writing, some of the best stories told in games with these different cases. Maybe when I get more time, I'll try something. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna try this one, but I'll try it again at some point in time. Maybe when I'm retired. It's just I've had enough Elden Ring and just getting destroyed by Souls games and stuff. I just want to sit back and watch a murder case unfold in front of me. I'll just do that.
There you go. That's probably the game plan for for a title like that. Last one we have here is Romancing Saga 2: Revenge of the Seven, coming to PS4, PS5, October 24th, 2024. So a lot of game announcements. I don't know about you, but the back half of this year is looking pretty stacked.
Yeah, I think for the most part, this first 3 weeks really of the month, the not E3 time, we got a lot of stuff coming out of it. And like you mentioned, the whole second half of this year is just packed full of stuff right now. And we didn't even have the big PlayStation showcase, quote unquote showcase there. We just had like the state of play, at the end of May. So, I mean, there's a chance like we get into September. So just 3 months from now and Sony does some big event. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now 2025 looks bad. It happens very fast. So I feel like the last 3 weeks filled out the base of the rest of this year pretty well. I mean, we're still waiting for some release dates because like we have 2024 for Lego Horizon Adventures, for example. But I think those will fill in pretty quickly through press releases and stuff. And I think September, October, November specifically are going to be those months where it's like every week multiple titles are coming out.
Pretty much. But you raise a good point, which is we still need a release date for Horizon and also Until Dawn, because that's coming out this year too. So for our next story, we know that Sony has confirmed to Eurogamer that they will not be at Gamescom 2024, which typically takes place in August. And Sony, of course, has not been exhibiting at any of these events for years now at this point. So that's not too surprising, but it is something where we still have Jeff Keighley's Gamescom opening night live. And as a Jeff Keighley live stream, Sony has typically given Jeff Keighley something during most live streams. I will say they did not do anything for Gamescom 2023 opening night live. They did not have any announcement in 2023. 2022, I think the only thing they did there was they did a trailer for the DualSense Edge.
Yep.
So I don't think it's like a complete guarantee that they'll do something, but I think it would line up nicely. Like after a month or so goes by, like that might be where we get a date for those two games. Or if they do, you know, I think at the very top end, you might see like, let's say Death Stranding 2, for example.
That would make a lot of sense to have Death Stranding 2 there, you know, just like him and obviously Kojima, that link. I think it would make a lot of sense to go that route. I
can't imagine much.
I would love to see Sony just show up with something where it's like, oh, I did not expect that. But yeah. I kind of feel like the route we're on right now, one of the reasons they wouldn't even buy. I mean, like you said, they haven't really done any kind of big booths or exhibits here in a while, but I kind of feel like that's at the end of August. We might be 3 weeks away from them doing some sort of showcase anyway. So it's like, why would we bother with this? I mean, really, I know it's Gamescom. It's a big show. I'm not gonna say it's like 300 some odd thousand people attend it, but I think Sony's days of just being at some of these big events with booths and stuff, it's kind of like behind them.
All right, like they wouldn't exhibit, but they might just give Jeff Keighley like a standard fare, because that's what they've been doing. They just sprinkle this stuff across so many different events. So it's like, even though you're saying like, oh, in 3 weeks, we could very well be having a showcase, which I would agree. But that's what's so weird is that they, at times when they could throw all these things into one show, they just simply don't. So I'm inclined to say like, we might at the very minimum, like, oh, here's an Until Dawn trailer. Go away, Jeff.
You could see that. I mean, the real twist would be if they unveil the PS5 Pro at a show. That would be the biggest shock twist ever.
Yes, I don't anticipate that will happen, but that would be I mean, honestly, that would be more of a Jeff Keighley thing for him to get that kind of get. But I mean, he had like the Xbox Series at one point. He did have the DualSense. He gets them from Microsoft.
Yeah, but like he had the DualSense Edge technically. I guess it's up to Sony if they'd want it. I don't know why Sony would do that necessarily. Although who knows? Maybe they're thinking, hey, we'll throw this hardware out there and then here come the games. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But you feel like you show the system when you're also ready to show the games right next to it to take advantage of that system. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm still curious as to if the Pro reveal is going to be similar to PS4 Pro in that it's strictly a hardware event and no new games are announced there. Or if this time around they will do a mix of like, here's this new console and also here's new game announcements.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they still had like because they showed, I remember with the PS4 Pro, they showed Spider-Man alongside of it, and that still wasn't out for like a few more years or something. But
yeah, but it was like, it was a known game. So it's like, here's enhancements. Like I'm still not necessarily sure if like this is going to be an event where like, here's a new, like, because that's the big thing right now. Half of these studios, we don't know what they're doing. We don't know what's coming for 2025 and beyond. I don't know if you do those announcements next to the Pro, since we don't really have a surefire example of how they did it before. PS4 Pro is strictly hardware.
Yep.
With that in mind, though, let's go into a very interesting topic, which is Sean Layden, the former head and chairman of Worldwide Studios, also the former president and CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment America, or SIEA. He's been doing a lot of talking lately. Showed up at Summer Games Fest, also speaking with Christopher Dring of GamesIndustry.biz. A lot of interesting topics talking about, the future of the games business, AAA game development, things like that. I don't think we can really touch on all this stuff here, but he made a lot of interesting points, which we've always kind of known this, right? But it's always, more food for thought. The one big example he brought up with, AAA game dev and how long it takes is simply that we're just, we're making games that are very big, right? It's been this growing rat race since like the 90s and early thousands. Games just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They get more expensive to make. And he mentions, and I quote here, "We live in a world where only 32% of gamers actually finish the game. So we're making a lot of game that 68% of people aren't seeing. So should we continue to build games that are unlikely for most of the people to even see to the end of it?" It's an interesting point. My mind immediately goes to something like Last of Us Part 2. which by all disciplines is like an industry leading game in terms of production, mocap, everything. You can list the game's an anomaly. It's really an incredible production. But as a like a linear story game, it's kind of mind blowing that it's like 25, 30 hours of that
Yeah, it
at
is.
that kind of production value. And it's like it's a very weird thing to say. Like, you know, games are very expensive. Obviously, this is an expensive hobby. But I don't know. I'm kind of the mind where he's right. Like I would be fine with games not being that, you know, that long.
You know what game comes to mind while you're saying that, right? Immediately, it's like flashing in my mind is Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Because I told you I spent like 80 to 90 hours in that game. And I don't feel like it had to be that long at all. I mean, I think to beat the game, I ended up going like 45 or 50 hours. The rest I was doing end game stuff. Even like that, the game just kept going. And I felt like it was going for kind of no reason at times. I don't think every game that comes out has to be that massive. But I do wonder if a lot of these studios feel like the game has to be that massive to justify some price tag that just keeps like it just keeps going. Like you say, it's kind of that carrot on a stick. Like the industry is constantly trying to push the envelope with this stuff. And one of those things is the open world aspect, where when I'm starting to hear games are just trying to have these big open worlds, I start to get that fatigue set in before I even turn the game on. I don't mind if a game says, hey, we're going to be a nice, concise 20 hours. It's just 15 hours even. And it's going to be linear, yes, but it's going to be a really good experience. Like, we'll be able to control a lot of the stuff that you're seeing and doing. Yes, there'll still be some side quest stuff you can do, but it will be high quality because we're able to rein in the scope. And I think that's the biggest thing right now, is that scope in general with the games industry is just out of control. Like, it's prolonging development, and it makes it so that if something goes wrong in development and you have to scrap the game, all of a sudden your 5-year development cycle turns into a 10-year cycle because now you're going to restart and try something new. And then we wonder, wait, why hasn't that studio made a game in like 8 years? And then we find out, oh, it's because they were working on Last of Us multiplayer and it's not working. So they're moving off of it. And it's like, oh, are we going to see them this generation? Now they're going to make one game. I'm obviously talking about Naughty Dog. Now it's like, we're going to make one game this generation. Is that the plan? I don't know. One game a generation for a studio, to me, is concerning right now, when we're still talking about the potential for a 8K on the PS6 or something. And it's like, how far are we going to push this thing until it becomes completely unfeasible to keep going with it?
Right. It's a very fascinating thing to think about too, when you like, because you bring up Rebirth, right? And I think to myself, like, okay, open world games almost should always have that expectation where you're going to get a lot of mileage out of them. But even that, still, to a degree, as you mentioned, like it has some level of bloat. Like, you felt like it didn't have to be that long. So whether it's like a linear game or open world, there's just this sort of understanding that you get more out of those games, out of those particular genres, than maybe what we were expecting to get 10 plus years ago. And on the opposite end of that coin, we have something like Hellblade 2 recently, which is like not a bad game. In fact, it was a very accessible game. It came with Game Pass. But even that game saw a lot of, you know, criticism for being as short as it was. And it's just such a, you know, you almost have to wonder if is it just simply a lot of enthusiast sort of echo chambers of people complaining about that game, but is there actual value in, like, okay, Hellblade 2 was a really nice tight package. Maybe we can talk about things they were doing wrong in terms of like the gameplay department or whatever the case is, but the length was, you know, pretty solid. It didn't overstay its welcome. And again, it was accessible. So there wasn't necessarily this big price barrier that would have made somebody upset that the game was that short, kind of like an Order 1886. But I mean, the thing is, that game still was in development for a long time as well. Not as long as some people think. That was a misnomer, but it was still in development for quite a, you know, a number of years.
Right.
Because the idea here is to try and revisit a time where, like, you know, you could have a Naughty Dog ship 3 games and then also a new IP with Last of Us within one console cycle. Just seems like we are never going to go back to that unless there's like a pretty big proliferation of scoping down games and also, you know, utilizing AI, generative AI, and a lot of tools that are going to be able to um, really sort of automate different processes throughout the development pipeline.
Generative AI comes up a lot, and whenever it does, there's a lot of backlash to it online. But I think there does have to be a serious consideration around it, just where we're going, because it's either you want the games to. I mean, I'll ask this to anyone in the chat or in the comments right now. If games, think of the best looking game you've seen right now. Maybe it is Hellblade 2, but think of the best looking game you've seen right now. If that is the roof for visuals, if it doesn't ever get any better than that, not necessarily frame rate, like frame rate can get better around that kind of thing. If this is as good as it gets, are people satisfied with that? Like, do games have to get better looking, or are we there? And some people are mentioning Spider-Man 2, and I'm like, I don't really know how much better the games look compared to an open world game like Spider-Man 2. It's a very good looking game. And for me, if it was more about, okay, the games look this way, how do we build off of this, not just visually speaking, how do we build off this gameplay wise, new concepts in terms of the gameplay loop? I think that would actually bring more value to the table than what we're used to every generational leap, which is just better visuals. And then the other part of this, Ryan, I think just comes down to the pricing for these games, because the idea in 2020 was to move to $70 to account for the development costs going up and the scope that keeps building out and what they're trying to do with their narrative driven experiences. But if you look at how inflation's gone from 2020 to 2024, like that whole $10 jump is gone. So
Right.
$58 in 2020 is $70 now. They've actually gone backwards $2 in terms of like real world, like value of money with inflation taking hold. So they're kind of back to square one, which does make me think like the plan might be, let's go to $80 next gen or sooner. I don't know if they would try that, but my point is something has to give. Either we go the route of they improve their tool set and they use AI for completing menial tasks, or they start raising prices again for games, or they deliver smaller games to you for the same price.
Well, that's that's always been true. You know, the inflation thing. Games have always, and some people just hate hearing this, but it's like factually true. Games have never been cheaper.
Right now, no, it hasn't. Yeah, $58. We'd have to go back to the $50 game maybe, because then if you do inflation, it jumps well over 70. You know,
I mean, dude, it's been for 30 years, for 30 something years. The price that you pay for games and then what you get in return, generally across most genres, I would argue all day, every day, it's just kind of nutty what you get. But the thing is, like, no matter how often you make that argument, and this is also valid, it's simply a matter of like, at $70, that just, it prices out a lot of people. It's just like a lot of money. Like, no matter how much value it is, like, there's just no getting around, like, in today's sort of marketplace where like more important things, your cost of living, your groceries, your bills. I mean, something has to give. So it's like, okay, yeah, Rebirth at 70, like, yeah, it's a lot of game for $70, but like, it just doesn't matter. It's a $70 game, and some households just can't
wait for a sale.
Can't do that.
Yeah. Wait for Christmas, you know, or something like that, right? A holiday, a birthday, just a graduation. I don't know, anything, right? Where you're like, I'll just wait and someone will gift it to me, or
but then
I'll
it's
save
like,
up and do it then.
If Square can't sell that game for 70, and like a bulk of their sales, if they can't sell a bulk of that game sales at the top end of that price, that creates a big problem for Square, which Rebirth is a problem because that game didn't do what it needed to. So it's already an issue. It's a really fascinating thing to consider.
But this has pushed them now to doing a lot of the microtransactions, a lot of the free to play, they're trying everything they can to attach money to it. And a lot of that is because of the inflation you're seeing right now. And that's why it has felt, not just me, but I have noticed it has felt more and more aggressive recently than even like years ago with some of the microtransaction stuff I'm noticing in these different games, especially third party ones specifically. And I'm like, oh, this game has microtrans. I didn't know that. Oh, interesting. Okay. So it's, you go into the store and you're like, oh wow, there's a lot of extra stuff I can buy for real money. People don't realize, look into some of the Tales games. Check those out when you get a chance. You'll be shocked at how much extra stuff you can buy. And that's Tales of Arise. I was like, whoa, that was like a whole other game here in terms of money you can spend.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on the MTX angle, which is a whole separate beast, but it's a fascinating thing to consider for sure. Sean talking about this. I mean,
I was a
it's
jerk. I was asking my parents to buy me $87 games back in 2002. Man.
yeah, I don't know. I just to sort of circle back to the beginning, I would generally agree with like the line of thinking that, you know, one aspect that I think is fine to go with is like let's tighten up some game experiences. We don't have to chase this rat race of like games being as long as they are, but
Yeah. I like the
just
idea of getting back to, we used to have those all the time, didn't we? On like the PS2, GameCube, Xbox, even 360 and PS3 days, we had 10-hour games. They come out at full
yeah.
price.
Hmm.
They were, you know what they were? They were creative. They were weird. They were different. And it was like, okay, this is cool. And you go through it and you'd be like, I feel like I haven't really had that experience anywhere before. And okay, felt like it was worth the money.
Now,
There you
see, I
go.
feel like that void has been filled though by like this sort of modern AA space, which is, you know, a lot of indies, or even if they've got like a
Mhm.
publisher, like you've still got like sort of, and I use air quotes here, like smaller scale games that are still like 7-figure productions easily to put together, but like your
Right.
Stray or Chia or Bug Snacks or whatever. I mean, we've got like so many games like that nowadays that I find do fill that void, especially because they also fill that void pricing wise as well. You know, if these games don't end up on subscription, like they're typically 20, $25, 30 at the most. If they get a physical retail game, like they're $40. So I do find that a good portion of that, what feels like a void is there.
Mhm.
It's just like some of your more legacy big publishers that still do those standard, you know, AAA affairs are problematic.
But like the original Uncharted came out, right? And it was 8 hours long.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know if that'd be a problem nowadays. For it was full price.
That's the thing. If we got a new Uncharted today and it was 8 hours, I think you're going to see a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this Uncharted was only 8 hours. I mean,
Uncharted
that's
4
not,
was 15.
but that's
It was
that's a
15
good
hours.
example. Like
Yeah.
Uncharted 4 is pretty long. It's kind of, you know, that game's almost,
Well, I mean,
I
it's
don't want
twice
to,
as long technically the first one. It's 15
yeah.
hours for Uncharted 4.
Yeah. But when you double the time, like that's going to, especially,
Mhm.
I would consider for that kind of gameplay, like it gets a little bit long on the tooth.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's a good, I feel like 15 hours now looking at it, I don't think that's a bad target to shoot for these big first party productions where maybe they can rein the scope in and not take 7 years to make it. If these kind of games 15 hours long, they came out in 3 to 4 years and they're tapping advanced tools and stuff to make it happen, I think that would make for I think a healthier games industry overall, because you'd also have people, it sounds funny, but they'd get more time to play more games because they wouldn't be stuck in one game for 80 hours when it feels kind of unnecessary most of the time you're doing it. Like it feels like you are doing those menial tasks in a video game. So
Well,
it's
that's if you're able to pull them away from live service.
that's the other
That's
thing
the
too, right? Those
that's the
they
other
call them black
pressure.
hole games, right? Is the
Yep.
idea.
There's no pressure to like, oh, I've finished this game. Let me go to the store and pick up a new one. Like there's just no pressure to do that when you can play the same one for free for
Yep.
as long as you have. That's why like the breakdown for a lot of publishers, Sony included with the most recent business segment briefing, is that like revenue wise, it's like it's 50-50. 50% is live service, like a handful of titles, you know, your Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto, and then the other 50% is like 7,000 just a la carte games on the PlayStation Store.
Man.
That's just it's just a crazy cut to consider.
Well, you got to build intellectual properties that are interesting to a wide audience, appealing to them. So we got to get Sly Cooper back.
I wish that was the key to everything. I wish it was.
I'm here, Ryan. We're going to make it happen.
A part of me a part of me thinks that is the truth, but I wouldn't say so.
You want to believe it too. Like you're ready to buy, you're ready to buy into the Sly Cooper push.
I'm ready to huff copium.
Okay.
If that is what I maybe in a few years, you never know.
If Blue Point shows up at the end of this year and Sly Cooper it pops up on screen, I mean, we're going to remember episode 2 of Click R3 podcast. People will have to come back here and comment on it.
Yeah, that's a pie in the sky dream. John, let's talk about this really quick little thing that popped up for PSVR 2. So we had this report come up from Android Central, Uh, Kind of a weird report, right? So I looked at this and I wasn't so sure how legitimate this was, but there's sources speaking with Android Central that Sony has made deep cuts to funding for VR games, that there's very few opportunities for VR game development at Sony going forward, and that apparently Sony only has 2 PSVR games, PSVR 2 games in development at Sony. And a big issue with this article for me is like it reads very negative, like just
Mhm.
like very overly negative, and this happens a lot for PSVR 2. So I'm always a little bit skeptical because oftentimes it's like there's just either a very clear sort of negative bias towards the headset, which look, criticisms are obviously always fair, but oftentimes I just want to make sure that, we're being a little bit objective on this topic because I think the headset's pretty misunderstood for the most part. But so that's the news. What struck me as very red flaggy about this story is hearing that Sony has 2 games in development. That is 2 more than I thought.
Yeah,
Because
well,
I mean, it's just our understanding of PlayStation Studios. There is no indication at all, as far as I know, for this company at their 15 in-house console developer studios that actually make and ship their own games. I don't think any of them are making VR games. So right off the jump, I don't understand how they have sources claiming there's 2 games. Like that is, in a weird way, the reason why this sounds wrong is because that's 2 more than I thought. Unless they're referring to PlayStation Studios as a general umbrella, because that does include second and third party, in which case that is what I would assume they're doing, and then that number actually makes sense. Because I would not expect a lot of PS Studio PSVR 2 games. Even
you
2
mean
still sounds like a lot.
they're partnering with a studio that they don't own. They're bringing in
Yes,
contracting with them, and then they're building a PSVR2 game.
because that would still be a PlayStation Studios game. That is part of that umbrella.
Right.
And at that point, then this article sounds a lot more accurate. They say at Sony, so that reads like a first party game, but that I almost certain there's no PSVR 2 games in house, even like if it's a hybrid thing. There's just no studios that have VR development going on, even Insomniac, and we know that for a fact because we had the Insomniac breach. So,
Right. Right.
but with that in
You could
mind,
have. Oh, go ahead. Go on.
no, I mean it's just where do we sit on the whole thing basically.
Well, I mean, the confidence for PSVR 2 is, I mean, it feels like it's at an all-time low right now with all the, like you said, there's been a lot of stories that have not been favorable for the headset, despite the technology in the headset being good. It's felt like Sony has just slowly backed away from it. And at least now they are including an adapter to open it up to PC, which I think is definitely something they should have done sooner rather than later, but at least it's coming. It's happening later this year. That's fine. A few months from now. And 2 games, I was looking at that and I thought, well, it's obviously neither of them are a Sly Cooper game, so we can rule that out.
Yeah, we can. Yeah,
Okay.
good job.
Well, thank you. And I think you're onto something with that. I also wonder if they're referring to any of these games having a VR mode in them, a game that gets released that has some sort of additional setting or something, like how we have Gran Turismo 7 that everyone is like, that's the most popular VR game. Okay, well, technically it's not a VR game. It's not how it's primarily played, but it's a really cool use for it. I'm thinking if there's any, if you're mentioning kind of like potential miscommunication or something, because obviously they have sources that are talking to people, I guess, at Sony, if there's a mode that's attached to not Astrobot, but some other game that's coming down the road.
The whole thing just, it's like it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. And also the nature of like how a source would know about 2 particular PSVR 2 games, and it just doesn't read like it is accurate to me. Because again, even in the case of hybrid games, like I know these studios, like we would see from like job listings that they would have VR talent.
Right.
We look, maybe I'm wrong, but we just have so far had no indication from like in-house studios that that's happening. I mean, and the thing is, I would have considered really this thing like is going to be a third-party machine, which I don't actually think is a bad thing. Just I think that is where it's going.
Right. So a lot of Sony basically back away from it, have introduced this hardware. They manufacture the hardware, but they're not going to do much of any software development for it. Really. It's just an extra device that goes with your PS5, and we'll get third party. Although, it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to go out and procure third party agreements and deals just to get stuff on like that Batman game. When that came up, people did go, oh, it's a VR game. Okay, PSVR 2, man. It's
Yeah.
like Oculus or whatever, the Quest. And I'm like, what? Come on. So not
Well, that's
not that the Quest isn't a bad headset. Obviously, it sells better than the PSVR 2 headset. But when you showed it at a gaming event that was geared around PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, obviously you're gonna get those groans when it's like, well, I don't have that headset. I have a PSVR 2.
well, that's the caveat. I don't if this thing comes to PSVR 2, that's not going to change the reception to that announcement, I find.
It might have
But
softened the blow a bit, but I will tell you when after Suicide Squad and then the next Arkham game that people may really want is on VR. They're like, oh, come on. We had to give them Suicide Squad. It's like that. So yeah, I think there is right, especially in gaming. I'd say gaming more than anything. There is definitely annoyance with VR still being around. I think some people thought that VR would have just gone away by now. Like it was kind of being viewed as the 3D TV, sort of. That was a big push for gaming and didn't work. Everyone backed away from it and we kind of moved on. VR is sticking around longer than I thought they would. I don't know when we're getting to a point where I feel like I think VR is an interesting idea for what it is. I think AR is like the future, though. The augmented reality that can be whittled down to where it's basically a pair of sunglasses and it just displays information on the world around you. That's it. I think that is a more likely scenario that would have mass adoption versus here's a box, strap it to your head, and now focus these lenses just right.
it's interesting you say that. See, yeah, VR and AR is not going anywhere. Like I find it's like a pet peeve of mine when like it like reductively boils down to, oh, it's a gimmick. Like, no, this is not like 3D. It's not like any other weird, like a PlayStation Move accessory or something. Like this is, you can have genuine, really encouraging, cool experiences. There's just like a lot of hurdles right now. Like it is antisocial putting a headset on.
Yep.
A lot of people can't deal with the motion sickness. The resolution's still not great, even on the top end for like the nicest headsets out there. Some people just physically just like, even when it's like fun to put it on, like once you're but like there's like a hurdle sometimes, like they just don't feel like doing it right then and there. I think there's like a lot of hurdles. But at least, I mean, as far as gaming goes, I mean, it's VR primarily. AR is like, as you're referring to, more of a, I would assume you're referring to like mixed reality, like
Yeah, like
application uses.
Things being put overlaid the world around you. That is a really cool thing. Like if you experience it, because you could still see everyone around you, right? And I'm not even talking about Apple's thing. I think we are getting to a position where we're going to have the ability to, because like Meta showed off glasses, but they're so limited that it's more about. I mean, I'll be real, just putting a camera in your glasses. You can put two and two together. But like you got what I'm saying, right? Like they're working it out to where I think you will have a point of here's glasses. Tony Stark, when he put on his and like it popped up with it. We'll get there in like 10 or 15 years. I think that has better mass adoption potential than what we have now. But you know what the issue really is with VR? You got to get people to try it. But in order for them to try it, they have to either know someone who already owns it with the whole setup, or they have to just spend $500+ on a whim to pair it with their PS5. It's kind of this chicken and egg scenario. So it's like, I promise it's cool, but now give me $500 to show you.
I would argue that I think a lot of people have had the chance to try it now, and it's still just too early. So like, this is why I think PSVR 2 is like really misconstrued, because it's like, complaining about PSVR 2, like PSVR 2 problems, like, oh, the wire, no backwards compatibility, the price, the game support. And I just think, look, all four of those solved, or three, whatever I just listed off, it ain't going to change anything. It's just not. You fix all three of all those things, PSVR 2 is not going to start flying off the shelves. It's just not. It always boils down to, I don't want VR, or VR is a gimmick, or I've tried it and I'm not into it. I can't abide to this idea that if PSVR 2 is like better than what it is when it's already good. I also find that's a bit weird too. It's only been a little over a year. Like, we're not talking about this on year 3 or year 4. It's been a year. And like the first year was actually pretty strong for the amount of games we got. I'm not saying the thing's perfect, but if you fix all those problems, I don't think that's changing anything.
Yeah, I just think VR in general is at a, I don't want to say a standstill, but it hasn't evolved maybe as fast as I was hoping. Like we still strap the big boxes to our faces, and I was hoping we'd be
Yeah.
beyond that. You know, I feel like that's just such a big hang up for people, because once you do that, you technically are saying, I'm now going to take myself out of this world completely. And there was always that thought of, I mean, it sounds out there crazy, but like somebody like kicking your door in or something, you wouldn't know. You're just in the guy in like the middle of the living room playing. They're just slowly carrying things out your door, like something like that, right? People, of course, have some of that in the back of their mind. It's like, I will now leave this world. There will be no social aspect to this. It's just going to be me in this world, which some people may like that, but I'm sure there are plenty of people who are like, or I could turn on God of War and just swing an axe around for a bit sitting in my chair over here. So
I just, yeah, there's like a lot of hurdles. I still love VR. I advocate for it a lot. I think it's a great experience. There are great experiences out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you said, I fully believe like Sony, Meta, Apple, everybody's just like, we thought it would be further along by now. Like, I think they all expected it to just be somewhere else at this point.
Meta seems to think people are going to go to their work and put this stuff on. And I'm like, I don't.
Well,
most people want to.
That's Apple too. They want, like, they're kind of going for enterprise right now.
Yeah.
Like, actually, with Apple, I just saw a story about how they're going to, it's like Lowe's. Lowe's is going to get them. And you can, like, if you're going to be in Lowe's doing a remodel, you could put on a Vision Pro, and you could be in like a basic model of what your like new kitchen is going to look like or something, right? Like they are going for the, I think the enterprise application, which has a lot of upside, especially, getting it off the ground if you're not capturing much of the consumer market right now.
I almost wonder if there's some concerns around cleanliness for the headset as well when you're in a public setting like that.
I would, yeah, very much.
I mean, I'm just honestly, I'm sure there are plenty of people who will look at that headset and be like, you clean, how many people wear this thing? Like, that's gonna come up. Especially, Lowe's, and like, they're just like, here's the headset, throw it on. But
like the Vision Pro's got like, it's like a gray felt, like, what that should look like when it's new, but it's someone might have clear browning.
Hey, someone might just be on like the nicest kitchen remodel, and they're just like sweating up a storm. Like, this is incredible. All right, now here, your turn. It's like, what? Hold on. I get you're excited. Let's get the wet wipes out here.
Oh God, gross.
Hey, this is the real world. This is the real world. I'm telling you,
you're not wrong.
How it is.
You're not wrong. All right, John. We covered up a lot of news here. Let's get into a new segment. We got to have some segments around here. Yeah, we got to have some segments. And well, early viewers of the show, you're now getting brought into some background here. One name for this show that I had, which I really wanted to do, but it's just like too long, would have been PSX Gonna Give It To You. PSX Gonna Give It To You. It hits, rolls off the tongue. I love it. Can't wait to see the comments say, "Shut up, Brian. That's an awful name." But the point is, we didn't go with that, but we're gonna make it a segment. PSX Gonna Give It To You. This is going to be the time where we reflect on some old PlayStation history and talk about just anything that, is maybe weird, obscure, noteworthy, maybe fill people in on just some interesting times in the PlayStation landscape. So I was telling John about this thing that came up a long time ago. This was during E3 2009, and it was the E3 translator guy with Gran Turismo PSP. So I forget.
I not clicked the link yet.
Yeah, I forget how much I told you about this. It was just like a weird thing where it became a meme, because like that was like the E3 thing, right? There was always something that would come up that would be silly and goofy, and it would get like GIFs would circulate. And so basically what happened here, John, is that when Kazunori Yamauchi did a presentation for Gran Turismo on PSP, a very Japanese man, he needs a translator. So the translator goes up, and it was just a very weird thing how the translator was like almost aloof in a way. He had a notepad which I don't know. Oftentimes when you see translators, they just kind of stand there and then they translate. But this
Right.
guy made zero eye contact with the audience. He never really looked up at all. He just had a notepad and would translate like off of that or whatever. And somehow that turned into a meme. Like, oh, this translator guy just doesn't care. He just doesn't care. He doesn't want to. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So should I check this link now?
Yeah. No. So you can check the link.
Let me check
We
this
can
link.
bring it up here. It became a. It became a. It got a know your meme page actually.
Really?
Yep. So
Let
it's
me
called
see.
Translator Son. He just doesn't give a fuck.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Tell me if you can hear it.
長い時間、お待た
I'm
せ
good.
していた、グランツーリスモ PSP、の、発表ができることを、本当に光栄に思っています。
To everyone, I am very honored here today to be given this opportunity to announce Gran Turismo PSP that I know everyone has been waiting for so long.
ですね、今ここで実際にグランツーリスモ PSP が、動いています。
As you can see here, Gran Turismo is running on the small PSP Go.
小さな小さな、PSP Go ですが、中に入っているグランツーリスモは、フルスケールのものです。
The PSP Go is a very, very small piece of hardware, but what the Gran Turismo that's running inside it is a full-scale Gran Turismo.
60フレームパーセカンドで動いてますね。
It's running at 60 frames per second.
簡単に、グランツーリスモ PSP の内容を皆さんに紹介しましょう。
Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to talk a bit about the game.
まずゲームのスケールですけれども、このグランツーリスモ PSP には800台以上の車が収録され、35コース、60レイアウト以上の景観トラックが収録されます。
Regarding volume and the scale, Gran Turismo PSP contains 800 cars, 35 tracks, and 60 layout variations of those tracks.
You look so uncomfortable.
についてはですね、例えばシングルプレイヤーモードでは通常のレースに加えてタイムトライアル、それからドリフトトライアル、それからグランツーリスモの伝統的なゲームモードと言ってもいいライセンス
I don't think so.
レンジモードが搭載されています。
Single player mode contains standard races, time trials, and drift trials, and there is a mission challenge mode that includes the legacy license mode of Gran Turismo, where you can learn your driving skills.
このグランツーリスモはですね、
I think it's great because he is all dressed up, and then the other guy didn't even take his jacket off.
セットではないフルセットのグランツーリスモであるということです。
Yeah, it's just it's like slightly out of place.
On such a small piece of hardware, this Gran Turismo PSP actually offers a full-size Gran Turismo experience. This is not a shrunken down subset of the series.
それからですね、この持ち運べるプレイステーションポータブルならではの機能として、アドホックモードを通じた最大4人までの対戦機能があります。
In addition, we've added features especially suited for a portable system like this PSP that utilizes the ad hoc mode, enabling you.
This is like 5 minutes, so I think we get the. I was just checking. I'm like, how long was this presentation again? I'm like, oh, that was 5 minutes.
It is 5 minutes, yeah. Wow.
So I don't know about you. I to this day have still never seen a translator like do it like that. I don't know anything about, I guess what's the etiquette or what's the professional way to do that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. And so this lives rent free in my and many PlayStation fans' heads. It's just a very weird, it's just kind of only a little bit weird.
Was he like unprepared? Like, was he like last minute, like call up or something? Like, yo, the other guy is a little busy right now over on floor, like on the other side of the hall. Can you do this real quick? That's all I could assume, because it looked like he got like thrusted out there, get the paper, pen, and did your best kind of thing. Because usually there's some sort of, like, you're right, there is like the main person will talk to the crowd, and then you also have the translator kind of looking up, talking around too with a microphone. That's interesting.
Yeah. So here, look at this one. So it's just memes, the memes that came after this, basically. Because he just looks so aloof,
He's just like hanging out.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just that was an interesting one. Never seen that before. He actually did do it. Like they used that same guy again, like the following year at like a G4 conversation or something.
It is.
Yep. That was funny.
That's a random moment in time that you picked, Ryan.
And that is the beauty of PSX going to give it to you.
That's the segment. You're going to give us random
segment.
PlayStation events and facts that happen.
Yep.
People can be well informed.
I think we did episode 2 justice, John. I don't know about you, but I think we're,
I think so. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Exciting. New Sly Cooper from Blue Point, apparently. New series.
Do not circulate that.
This is Ryan is right here. You see him on camera. And then you just heard Sly Cooper, and Reddit's about to ruin your reputation.
No, for the love of God. I think people know that we won't be like doing scoops or anything. That's
I'm gonna look at us sideways if Sly Cooper gets unveiled at the end of this year from Blue Point.
Just bring back Sly Cooper, or just play one.
Play it on PlayStation Plus Premium. It's still fun. Or buy it for $10. I think it is worth $10. It is a good time. It is. Especially if you've never played it before and you're about to take a chance on it. Trust me, it's $10 well spent. You can spend $10 on a lot of other like worse stuff. So
also true.
Okay. Thanks everyone for tuning in to episode 2 of Click R3 Podcast. We will be back in a couple of weeks because we have too many games coming up. So we'll probably have some stories after that to go over and maybe some pickups. I don't know. We'll see what Ryan comes up with. Maybe I'll find something cool. All right. Tune in. Also, feel free to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Check us out. We're also on like SoundCloud, Apple, Spotify. We're everywhere. So check us out there. Give us a rating, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.